I have audit logs. Friends lie to you about your haircut. Audit logs tell you exactly who was in the building at 3:04 in the morning and why they tried to export 4 terabytes of data to a server in a non-extradition country. I'm Harold, the Senior Cyber Compliance Officer for Aegis Analytics. The people who matter, the Department of Defense, the NSA, and the grim-faced auditors who decide if this company lives or dies. I am the Gandalf of you shall not pass. I've spent 20 years in federal contracting, and I've learned one universal truth. The biggest threat to national security isn't a hacker in a hoodie in a basement in St. It's a so-white executive who thinks password 123 is easy to remember. It was a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that feels like it's been dipped in gray paint and left to dry. Green code cascading down a screen. I was looking for anomalies in the compartmentalization protocols. We model troop movements based on weather patterns. And we house data that, if leaked, gets people killed. That's the job. I was scrolling through the access requests for server node 7, an air-gapped beast that houses the if World War Roman III starts, read this datasets when I saw it. Jagged little line in the smooth hum of the data stream. The ping came from an internal development account, devadmin04. Everything at Aegis is biometrically linked to a specific human being with a specific clearance level. I picked up the phone, a heavy encrypted VoIP line that looks like it belongs in a submarine, and dialed the IT director, Toby. Toby is a good guy, but he has the backbone of a chocolate eclair when management walks in. Toby, I said, skipping the pleasantries. Why is devadmin4 active, and why is it trying to handshake with the air-gap drive? Silence on the other end. Not that I'm looking into it. Silence, I am currently soiling my ergonomic chair. Silence. Harold. Toby. Dada's voice was a whisper. The ticket came from upstairs, like penthouse upstairs. Toby, I said, my voice dropping an octave into what my ex-husband used to call the Harold tone. I don't care if the ticket came from the ghost of George Washington. That account is not cleared for TSSI data. It's Silas. Silas, the CEO's 27-year-old son, the chief innovation strategist. A kid whose resume consists of 2 failed crypto startups and a bachelor's degree in entrepreneurial spirit from a university that sounds like a salad dressing brand. Silas had been prowling around the office for months, talking about disrupting the paradigm and leveraging AI synergies. I mostly ignored him. Silas doesn't have clearance, Toby, I said, typing furiously on my secondary keyboard to lock down the perimeter. Silas can barely clear his browser history. Why does he have a root access key? His dad, Toby said, sounding miserable. CEO walked in here yesterday. He said Silas needs unfettered access to build his pitch deck for the Pentagon meeting. It wasn't fear of Silas. It was the realization of the blast radius. Toby, listen to me very carefully. Jesus Christ, Toby. I stared at my screens. The devadmin04 account was still probing the firewall like a drunk teenager trying to pick a lock. This wasn't just a policy violation. This was a direct violation of Title 18, United States Code. Section 793, gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. This was a breach of our active contract under the False Claims Act, Title 31, United States Code, Section 3729, with the NSA. If Silas managed to pull data out of that drive and put it on an unsecured laptop, or God forbid the cloud Aegis Analytics wouldn't just lose a contract. The probe stopped, access granted. The CEO hadn't just bullied Toby. He had used his own executive credentials to bypass the fail-safe. They were inside. Silas was inside the operational forecasting server. I didn't scream. Instead, I opened a secure terminal that runs on a completely separate network from the corporate LAN. I inserted my personal smart card and typed in a 64-character encryption key. I was about to light a match, and I was sitting on a mountain of dynamite. But I wasn't the one who poured the gasoline. That was Silas. I was just the one holding the rulebook. In this case, it was the all-hands vision meeting. The email invite had come with a gift of a rocket ship taking off. I hate gifts in work emails. The CEO, Julian, stood on a raised platform, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. Standing next to him was Silas. Silas looked like he had been generated by an AI, prompted with arrogant tech bro who thinks he's Steve Jobs, but is actually just a liability. He was holding a tablet like it was the 10 Commandments. Team Julian boomed, his voice echoing off the glass walls. For too long, Aegis has been reactive. I felt a few heads turn toward me, but the future isn't safe. The future is bold, and my son Silas is going to lead us there. Silas stepped up to the microphone. He adjusted his glasses, which I'm 90% sure were non-prescription frames he bought to look smarter. I mean, Julian, Silas chuckled. We have data silos everywhere. Information wants to be free, guys. Information wants to be free is a great slogan for a hacker manifesto. I'm announcing the new AI initiative, Silas continued, pacing the stage. We're going to generate real-time insights for the Pentagon that will blow their minds. Silas had just admitted in front of 200 people that he had extracted classified data and uploaded it to a cloud server. Probably an AWS instance he set up with his personal credit card. Now Silas smirked, locking eyes with me. I know some of the old guard here love their firewalls. I know our compliance officer, Harold. Where are you, Harold? Ah, there she is. I didn't blink. I stood with my arms crossed, radiating the energy of a disappointed librarian. Harold thinks security means locking things in a box, Silas said, his voice dripping with condescension. So effective immediately, I'm overriding the legacy access protocols. No more tickets. Julian clapped. Let's get to work. They knew a corpse when they saw one, and they assumed it was me. I sat down, unlocked my workstation, and immediately pulled the secondary audit logs. Silas wasn't lying. He had done exactly what he said. At 4:15 in the morning, the DVAdmin04 account had executed a mass export command, select from Tactical Ops DB. I traced the IP. It wasn't a secure government cloud. My hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of the stupidity. I took a screenshot. I exported the packet capture. I saved the video file of the all-hands meeting from the internal server. My contact. There's a man named Director Graves. We've never met for coffee, but we have a very intimate relationship based on the mutual understanding that people are idiots. I typed update to previous report. Data is now hosted on unsecured third-party public cloud. The screen blinked. Report received. Do not intervene, do not intervene. Silas was running around the office high-fiving people, thinking he was Elon Musk. It tasted like battery acid. I loved it. 2 hours later, my desk phone rang. It was the internal extension for human resources. The caller ID said, Brenda, VP of People. Brenda was the kind of HR executive who decorated her office with live laugh love signs but would fire a pregnant woman for taking too many bathroom breaks. Harold, his voice was sugary sweet, the auditory equivalent of high fructose corn syrup. I knew this was coming. In fact, I had been counting the minutes. I picked up my purse. I didn't take my stapler. I wanted my desk to look exactly as it was, a crime scene of interrupted work. I walked down the hallway past the rows of developers who were now frantically trying to integrate Silas's new AI into their stable code. It looked stressed. They knew something was wrong, but they had mortgages to pay. I entered Brenda's office. Julian, the CEO, was there too, leaning against the window, looking out at the parking lot, like he was pondering the burden of his own genius. Silas sat in the guest chair, scrolling on his phone, looking bored. Have a seat, Harold, Brenda said. Gesturing to the empty chair, I sat. Harold Julian started, not even turning around. We've been discussing the company's culture, the direction we're heading, and I asked. He turned then, his eyes cold, and we feel that you are no longer a cultural fit. I didn't say a word at the meeting, Julian, I said calmly. That's the problem. Silas piped up, dropping his phone onto the desk. You're always looming. You're like a dark cloud, Harold. I looked at Silas. Silas, you uploaded classified military data to a public server. Julian slammed his hand on the desk. Enough. You are obsessed with obstacles. Silas is a visionary. You are a relic. You're paranoid, Harold. Maybe if you spent less time policing my son and more time understanding his vision, you'd see that. So, I'm being fired for upholding the compliance standards outlined in our federal contract. I asked, wanting him to say it. You're being let go for insubordination and creating a hostile work environment, offering you 2-week severance if you sign a non-disparagement clause. I won't be signing that, I said. Julian laughed. You leave with nothing. Then hand over your badge. You're making a mistake, Julian, I said. It was a statement of fact, like saying it's raining. Get out. Security will escort you to your car. The walk to the lobby was long. He was ashamed. When the glass door slid shut behind me, the humid Virginia air hit my face. I walked to my sedan, unlocked the door, and sat in the driver's seat. I had one unread message on the secure app received 3 minutes ago. It was from Director Graves. Status terminated. I typed back, "Yes, badge surrendered, access revoked." The reply came instantly, "You are now a protected witness. We are moving assets into position." I could see Silas in the window of the corner office, my old office, or maybe Julian. He was gesturing wildly, probably explaining to someone how he was going to revolutionize warfare with an algorithm he didn't understand. He thought he had cut out the cancer. He didn't realize that I wasn't the cancer. I drove home, put on some classical music, and waited for the world to end. My house is quiet, no TV blaring, no kids screaming. It was 2 in the afternoon. I should have been in a budget meeting. Instead, I was unemployed, but not really. At 2:15 in the afternoon, my personal laptop, a secured ThinkPad that never connects to public Wi-Fi, pinged. It took the system 30 seconds just to handshake. The screen flickered to life. Director Graves was sitting in a room that looked like the inside of a bunker. He didn't do small talk. "Mr. Harold," he said. "Director," I nodded. "We have full mirroring on Aegis servers," Graves said. "We tapped the line the moment you sent the first anomaly report. We've been watching your boy Silas for 6 hours. He's not my boy," I corrected. Graves agreed. "He thinks he's building a warbot." I closed my eyes. "If that data propagates, we have containment." Graves cut in. "We've sandboxed his connection. He thinks he's on the open web. He's feeding data to us, not the public, but he doesn't know that." "So, what now?" "Now we let him hang himself," Graves said. "The one where they pitched this innovation to the Pentagon liaison. They're expecting General Briggs. General Briggs is coming, and so am I." Graves leaned forward. "Technically, Mr. Harold, you are a civilian, but as of this moment, I am activating you under Title 50 authority as a specialized consultant. You are reinstated, not by Aegis, but by the United States government." "What do you need me to do?" "Nothing," Graves said. "That's the hardest part for people like you, Harold. You want to fix it? You want to patch the hole? Wait for my signal. You won't need a badge where you're going," Graves said. "We're going to clean house, Harold, and I want you there to witness the audit." I sat there for a long time. The house was still quiet, but the air felt different. Charged, I thought about Julian. I thought about his smug face when he fired me. I ironed a blouse for tomorrow, a nice one, silk, deep navy blue, a power color. I slept like a baby, the kind of sleep you only get when you know the rules are finally going to work. The next morning, I parked my sedan in the overflow lot, across the street from Aegis Data Solutions. Graves hadn't been joking about the access. There was a dedicated barista station. The table, usually bare mahogany, was draped in a tablecloth that looked like silk. Julian was pacing, checking his watch. He looked nervous but excited. No, a quantum leap in defense analytics. Silas was there, too. A look that says, "I'm too rich to care about dress codes." He was hooking his laptop up to the massive 85-inch presentation screen. "Dad, the latency is practically zero," Silas said, his voice tinny through the surveillance mic. "The bot is responding instantly. I asked it to predict a supply chain disruption in the South China Sea, and it gave me a scenario in 3 seconds. Do you know how long Harold's team took to model that? Weeks?" "Harold is the past," Julian said, straightening his tie. Silas laughed. I watched them from my car sipping lukewarm coffee. They were talking about tax havens while committing espionage. General Briggs walked in, but behind them was the real show. 4 men got out. Director Graves was in the lead. He walked into the lobby. Graves didn't stop. He flashed a badge that I couldn't see clearly on the camera, but I saw Molly's face go pale. She just backed away from the desk. Graves and his team moved toward the elevators. They moved with a fluid, predatory grace. They didn't look at the art on the walls. They didn't look at the awards in the display case. Back in the boardroom, Silas was high-fiving Julian. "Let's get this bread," I whispered to myself in the car. It was Graves. "Move in, come up." The sun was shining. Birds were singing. It was a beautiful day for an execution. I didn't rush. Molly was standing by the desk looking terrified. "Harold," he whispered. "I thought you were fired. They locked the elevators." "It's okay, Molly," I said, my voice calm. "I don't think I should, Molly," I said gently. She looked at me. Yes, she swiped her MasterCard. "Thank you," I said. "You might want to take an early lunch. Go to that place across town." The ride-up was silent. I watched the numbers tick up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doors opened. The hallway was empty. The sound of voices drifted from the open doors of the boardroom, and here Silas's voice boomed as the interface. I walked down the hall, Gentleman Silas was saying, gesturing to the screen where a sleek, dark mode dashboard was displayed. What you're seeing is the Aegis AI Nexus doesn't just read data. It scrapes every secure database we have. General Briggs sat at the head of the table, his face unreadable. He wasn't looking at the screen, he was looking at Silas with the expression one might reserve for a toddler playing with a loaded gun. For example, Silas continued, typing on his keyboard. If I ask it for the vulnerability assessment of the Eastern Grid, boom, there it is, a map populated on the screen. Better, Silas grinned. It's running on a distributed hybrid cloud, maximum speed, meaning connected to the internet. Yes, Silas beamed. Suddenly the screen flickered. Connection terminated, remote host unreachable. Anoa tapped the keys. 1 sec, he tried to refresh. Nothing. That's weird, Julian said, stepping in to cover the awkward silence. Technical gremlins, the curse of the live demo. Right, General. General Briggs didn't laugh. He slowly closed the folder in front of him. Not a ringtone, a harsh emergency alert tone, then silence. The signal bars on everyone's phones dropped to 0. What is going on? Julian asked, pulling out his phone. I have no service. The VPN is down, Silas said, panic creeping into his voice. That a voice came from the doorway is because we cut the hard line. Director Graves stepped into the light. He wasn't smiling. It slid across the silk tablecloth and stopped directly in front of Julian. The metallic thud was the loudest sound in the world. Who the hell are you? Julian demanded, his face flushing red. How did you get in here? I'm Director Graves of the National Security Agency, Graves said calmly. It is a crime scene. 2 agents stepped in behind Graves. They moved to the windows, blocking the view. Silas laughed nervously. Did Harold put you up to this because it's not funny? Silas. Julian hissed. Your son asked a question, Graves said, turning his gaze to Silas. Graves looked at the general. General Briggs, my apologies for the interruption, Graves confirmed. God, Briggs muttered. He looked at Julian with pure disgust. Julian sputtered. You had protocols, Graves corrected, and then you fired the person who enforced them. Graves turned toward the door. Harold, I stepped into the room. The look on Julian's face was worth every unpaid overtime hour I had ever worked. His eyes darted from me to Graves and back. Harold, he whispered. Hello, Julian, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there wearing my navy blue blouse, looking like the personification of I told you so. She's the one who sabotaged the network, Silas shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. She's bitter. She hacked us. Sit down, son. One of the agents barked. Silas sat. Mr. Harold didn't hack you, Graves said. Opening the folio, she reported you as she was legally required to do, and because she did, we were able to intercept your little innovation before it reached the Chinese servers that were actively scraping your secure cloud. Chinese servers? Silas squeaked. You used a third-party host, Silas, I said, walking to the table. Did you read their terms of service, or did you just click agree because their servers are mirrored in Shanghai? Silas whispered. With what? I asked. A standard 256-bit key. Silas, it would have taken them about 4 minutes to crack it. Luckily, Graves interjected. Harold alerted us yesterday. We redirected your DNS. Your data never went to Shanghai. We caught it all. The silence in the room was heavy. It was the silence of a grave. Julian slumped into his chair. Okay, he said, his voice trembling. We'll wipe the servers. We'll fire Silas. Hey, Silas yelped. It's too late for that, Julian, Graves said. We watched Silas on the big screen, strutting around the stage. Audio, Silas. If we're faster than the enemy, we don't need walls. Graves paused the video, admitting to intent. He noted. A log file appeared. It showed the CEO's credentials authorizing the override. And here, Graves said, looking at Julian as the facilitator. You used your executive privilege to bypass a federal safety stop. That makes you an accessory to the distribution of classified material. I didn't know what he was going to do with it, Julian pleaded. I just wanted to empower my team. Ignorance is not a defense when you sign a contract stating you understand the penalties of negligence, General Briggs said. He sounded tired. Julian, do you know what the penalty is for mishandling side data? We can pay a fine, Julian said quickly. Aegis has insurance. I couldn't help it. It was a short, sharp sound. This isn't a parking ticket, Julian, I said. You don't pay a fine, Harold. Please. Julian looked at me, his eyes wet. You know me. Help me explain this to them. I looked at him. I remembered the way he looked at the parking lot while Brenda fired me. I remembered him calling me a relic. I did tell them, I said softly. I told them in my first report. You told me I was creating a hostile work environment. You fired the whistleblower, Graves stated, which by the way is another federal crime. Treason? Silas whispered. Wait, treason is? That's for spies. You're a leak, Graves said. Graves turned to the general. We have enough for the immediate suspension of the contract. Julian stood up. He didn't draw a weapon, but the way he shifted his weight made it clear that violence was an option he was comfortable using. Julian sat. Here is what happens next, Graves said, pacing the room. Aegis Data Solutions is now under federal receivership. All assets are frozen. But the board, Julian stammered the investors. The board is being notified as we speak, Graves said. I imagine your stock price is currently doing a very convincing impression of a stone dropped in a well. I looked at Silas. I just wanted to make a bot, he blubbered. It was tragic, and it was entirely avoidable if they had just listened to the man with the coffee and the spreadsheet. Harold, Graves turned to me. Yes, Director, I said. I secured the hard drives in the level 4 safe before I was escorted out yesterday. Silas didn't know the combination, so he couldn't corrupt the originals. Good. Graves nodded. That saves us a week of forensics. He looked at Julian. Be going to a black site because we wouldn't be able to prove you didn't sell the data. Julian looked at me, just fear and regret. Harold, he whispered, on at 2:15 in the afternoon lunchtime. Carmichael, he was a man in his 70s who smelled like old money and cigars. Julian Carmichael roared. I have the SEC on line 1 and the Department of Defense on line 2. Our stock is halted. He stopped when he saw the general and the agents. General Briggs Carmichael's tone shifted instantly to obsequious panic. Save it, Carmichael, Briggs said. Your CEO and his son just tried to open source our troop movements. Carmichael turned on Julian. Julian cried. He bypassed the protocols, Graves interrupted. Carmichael looked at Silas, who was still sniffling. Then he looked at Julian. You're fired, Carmichael said. We are clawing back everything, Julian shouted, and frankly, if these gentlemen don't arrest you, I might kill you myself for what you've done to my portfolio. Carmichael looked around the room frantic. Aegis employs 2,000 people. The contract is suspended. Briggs said, pending a full security audit, we can't pass an audit. Carmichael cried. Actually, Graves said, gesturing to me, she's right here. Carmichael looked at me. He looked confused for a second. Harold, right? The one who saved your company's existence. Graves corrected. Harold detected the breach, reported it through proper channels, secured the physical backups, and prevented the data from leaving the country. She's the only reason you aren't being classified as a hostile entity right now. Carmichael looked at me like I was the second coming of Christ. Harold, I didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. We need you back, Carmichael said, stepping over Silas's legs to get to me. Just tell the general we're compliant. I looked at Graves. He gave me a barely perceptible nod. I have conditions, I said. Anything, Carmichael promised. First, I pointed at Julian and Silas. Done, Carmichael said. Second, I said, I report directly to the board. No CEO oversight on security matters. If I say a server stays locked, it stays locked. Agreed. Carmichael said, you have absolute autonomy. Third, I said, I want Toby from IT to get a raise. Tried to stop them. Done, Carmichael said. I turned to General Briggs. General, if the leadership is removed and the original protocols are restored, can we maintain the contract? Briggs looked at me. If you are the one signing the compliance forms, Harold, then yes, we will proceed on a probationary basis. Thank you, General, I said. I looked down at Julian. He was slumped in his chair, staring at the table. He had lost his company, his reputation, and his freedom. Julian, I said. He looked up. You were right about one thing, I said. I am a firewall, and you just burned yourself trying to cross me. Gentlemen, Graves said to his agents, please escort the suspects to the vehicles. Suspects, Silas squeaked as an agent hauled him out of the chair. Silas started crying again. Julian stood up. He looked at Carmichael, but Carmichael turned his back. He looked at the general, but the general was reading a file. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Julian said. I know, I said. It's not in the log. The agents led them out. Silas was stumbling, his common project sneakers squeaking on the floor. Julian walked with his head down. They passed Molly at the reception desk. The room was quiet again. The Aegis AI Nexus screen was still black. Well, General Briggs said, putting on his cap. That was efficient. We try, Graves said. Harold, I assume you can handle the cleanup from here. Yes, Director, I said. I'll initiate the server wipe and restore from the clean backups. We'll be operational by 8 in the morning tomorrow. Good, Graves said. He walked to the door, then stopped. Harold, yes, nice work on the backups. It was standard procedure, sir, I said. Graves said, the corner of his mouth twitching up in almost smile. Standard procedure. He left. Carmichael shook my hand, his palm sweaty, and promised to have the new contract sent over within the hour. I looked down at the street. I saw the black subs pulling away. I saw Julian and Silas in the back of the second one. They were heading to a federal holding facility. They would have lawyers and trials. Maybe they'd get lucky and only do a few years in a minimum security camp, but they were done. Their names were mud. I walked over to the presentation table. I unplugged Silas's laptop. My badge still didn't work. Toby was there. Harold, he said, looking like he'd seen a ghost. They're gone, Toby, I said. Reactivate my credentials. On it, he said, and thanks. Don't thank me, I said. Just don't ever use a ghost key again. Never, he promised. I walked into my office. It was exactly as I had left it. My stapler was there. It creaked familiarly. I logged into my workstation. Langley Access Level Administrator Unrestricted. I opened the log file for DVAdmin. Then I went to the break room, boiled some water, and made a fresh cup of Earl Grey. It was hot, bitter, and perfect. It simply operates. Harold let her meticulous adherence to protocol speak volumes. Appreciate you all for sticking through this one.